You know, I thought it was so interesting over the weekend, the CPAC event and former President Trump's speech. It was almost like he walked off the stage and, like, he became invisible again. Everything sort of fell flat. I don't think he got the reaction that he wanted. And all the discussions that we have about the party and the impact that he's having on the party, it's also sort of interesting to watch just general reaction to him. I'm just not seeing it.
Well, I've got to say, getting reporting a day later, he wasn't pleased with the speech. He went the first hour on teleprompter, but he was inside. Somebody there described it as it's almost like a sound check for a band. You're inside this big hall.
Yeah.
It's a third full, and that's because of COVID. It's not in Washington. It's down in Orlando. And the whole thing seemed very small to him. And he was irritated.
So he didn't get the reaction he wanted.
He didn't get the reaction he wanted. And then after an hour, he went off script. And when he went off script, that's when he really started churning up the conspiracy theories, which upset people there, upset his people there who thought he really needed to stay away from the conspiracy theories. So all in all, it didn't go well. And then, of course, Mika, I saw last night the Wall Street Journal opinion page, who we've been following very closely because at times they've seemed far too, well, they've kowtowed to Donald Trump at times. But there have been other times where they've drawn a line in the sand and been very tough. And it certainly seems like this morning's op-ed is one of those times where, I mean, wisely enough, it's like they've had enough. And I've got to say, Democrats and people in the media wring their hands when Donald Trump comes out now. We talked about it yesterday. And the Wall Street Journal is saying, and I think they may be right, that actually Donald Trump, when he comes out, is something Democrats should cheer about because he's genuinely bad for their party. And this editorial, let's read a little bit of the editorial, Mika. This editorial, I think, really it has to be the must read, especially for Republicans on Capitol Hill today.
Yeah. OK, so it's entitled "The Grievances of Trump Past," in which they ask, if he was so great politically for the GOP, why is the party now out of power? And the board writes in part this: Mr. Trump said Sunday that he won't form a third party because it would divide the center-right coalition and elect Democrats. But he also laid out his political enemies list and is clearly bent on revenge against anyone who voted to impeach or convict him or disagrees with his election claims. These intra-party fights will sap GOP energy and resources when their priority now should be retaking Congress in 2022. Mr. Trump's base of support means he will play an important role in the GOP, but as the Biden months roll on and the policy consequences of the 2020 defeat become stark, perhaps the party's grassroots will begin to look past the Trump era to a new generation of potential standard bearers. As long as Republicans focus on grievances of Trump past, they won't be a governing majority. So, Joe, what they're saying is Trump equals losing.
Well, he does. I mean, they're the party of grievance. And as the Wall Street Journal said, the party of grievance past. And I want you to compare the Democratic Party right now with the Republican Party right now. You have the Democratic Party that lined up behind a candidate. You're looking like, let's talk about Bernie Sanders and AOC. They lined up behind a candidate, Joe Biden, who, as AOC said, in any other country would be in another party from her. Very little in common. They consider Joe Biden to be a relic from a different age ideologically, Democratic Party past. And yet, what did they do? They worked around the clock to get him elected. You talk to Biden people off the record, they will tell you that Bernie Sanders worked hard as anybody to get them elected. AOC worked hard as well. Other progressives who disagreed with Joe Biden on a lot of issues. And even now, Democrats are trying to figure out how to come together, from Bernie Sanders to Joe Manchin, to pass a bill that actually 76% of American support. And the Republican Party is opposing that bill. The Democratic Party is acting, and I know Republicans understand this on the Hill. The Democratic Party right now is acting like a governing majority. They're acting like a party that wants to pass legislation, who wants to make a difference, who wants to advance their causes that are near and dear to them. And guess what? They're willing to compromise, even with Joe Manchin, even with Bernie Sanders. They want to move the ball down the field. And then you have the Republican Party that has turned into a party of gestures, empty gestures, and grievance.
Anger.
This is not a contest. This is not close. The Republican Party, unless they actually read the Wall Street Journal editorial today and take it to heart and figure out how to start being constructive and understand. I said this yesterday. This is so important. Understand that this is not 2009. The battlefield's always changing. You lose by fighting the last war. That's the old saying. Joe Biden is not Barack Obama. You can't just obstruct in 2021 and think you're going to get the same results you got from 2009 to 2016. It's not going to work. Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.